Now, on our next story, we are going to go and talk about once again K-pop Demon Hunters, in which right now its success is continuously getting bigger and bigger, down to the point where now it is breaking the real significant records here. Like, it's already on track to possibly be one of the biggest, or actually to be the biggest streaming movie in history. Not just the biggest animated film on streaming, but just the biggest movie on streaming, period, even beating out Red Notice. And this is not even to mention many of the other achievements that K-pop Demon Hunters has done, especially with its soundtrack. But I'm not here to go and talk about K-pop Demon Hunters specifically. What I am here to go and talk about is actually the biggest loser of K-pop Demon Hunters' success. Now, at this point, some people may think that the biggest loser would be Disney, or they would say Pixar, mainly because of Elio being released at the same time as K-pop Demon Hunters, but unfortunately came out as a box office flop. But oh no, that's not actually the case, folks. That's not who I'm talking about here. In fact, this loser right over here, they wish to be like Disney and Pixar. Because the biggest loser of K-pop Demon Hunters' success is actually the studio that made K-pop Demon Hunters, Sony Pictures. Now, I know that sounds like a very weird comment. How the fridge is Sony the biggest loser of all this? They were the ones who created one of the biggest animated features of the year. How could they have taken the L on this? Well, it is actually very interesting. Because I got this article right over here from Forbes, in which they actually have a very clear explanation to why is it they lost big time here. So let me just go and read you from my source on Forbes, in which it says here, according to industry fixture Matt Belloni of Puck News, the problem is how this original deal was structured. Sony made K-pop Demon Hunters for $100 million, then sold the rights to Netflix. Now reports are that Sony will end up making just $20 million in profit on the deal thanks to those terms, as anything that happens from here, that's all Netflix, since they own the property. Now, to go and give you a little bit of context, in case you might have heard, or in case you don't know, during the production of K-pop Demon Hunters, Sony actually had no faith in the movie, or at the most, they had very little faith, since they still let the movie actually happen. And they had such little faith, in fact, that not only did they decided to hand this over to Netflix, where they would be the distributors of the film and not even give it a chance to be released in theaters, but also they sold the entire rights of K-pop Demon Hunters to Netflix. And as a result, what they got in return is a $20 million profit. Now, at that point, that doesn't really sound that bad. It sounds like pretty decent business. You know, you would go and create an entire movie, and then in return, you were able to turn that into a $20 million profit. You know, you did get a gain. You did get something out of it. You know, there are many movies out there that they would love to have that, you know, that they would make the movie, and then by the time they would be released either on streaming or in theaters, somehow they would end up in a position where what they end up with is plus $20 million. Sounds pretty good, right? Well, not in this case, because keep in mind that we are talking about K-pop Demon Hunters here, a movie whose popularity could only be challenged by Noja 2, or at least in terms of animated features released this year. In fact, this article would then go and describe more about the success of K-pop Demon Hunters, in which it says right over here, the rest is history, of course. As I write this, K-pop Demon Hunters remains the #1 movie on Netflix 7 weeks after release, something we've never seen before. It has been elevated to Netflix's second most viewed movie ever, and it has its sights set on #1 Red Notice. It has placed at number 1 on almost every top music chart with its fictional group Huntrix's track Golden, most recently achieving the ultimate prize, landing at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, the first K-pop group to do so, and the first girl group to do so since Destiny's Child. So imagine this. We have a movie here in which it managed to break so many records in terms of movies on Netflix or just on streaming in general, where, like I said before, it's on its way to be the most streamed movie in history to ultimately break that record. And on top of that, the movie also has a soundtrack in which that is also breaking records, in which some of its singles, especially Golden, has managed to go and really top the charts, including Golden was able to go and be at number 1 at the Billboard Top 100. So with all of that, you can imagine that Netflix is making absolute bank, and they were able to do so by doing absolutely nothing. All they did was just buy the rights from Sony, and then they were able to really go and profit from the rest, profiting off of its success, off of the success of the soundtrack, and this is not even to mention the merchandising. Meanwhile, well, as Huntrix would probably describe it best, Sony Pictures getting none, absolutely none of the rewards that they would get from the success would be seen from Sony Pictures. So they received absolutely nothing, and they will see nothing from its success in the long run. They already got that $20 million plus, and that is pretty much it. So that is what I mean by the fact that Sony Pictures came out as an absolute loser. Because compared to what Netflix is getting in terms of the success of K-Pop Demon Hunters, Sony is seeing absolutely none of it. And by the way, I might as well go and say this right now. You could pretty much forget to think about what the creatives, what the actual team who made the movie, like, you can forget about them getting any major rewards for the movie's success. Now, granted, there are stories in which the cast are actually seeing great benefits from it. I actually did hear that apparently the voice of Genu, he really turned his life around, where his career got a massive, significant boost. And you know what? Great on him. But when it comes to the team at Sony Pictures Animation, yeah, okay, well, technically, they did get their payments, and, they already got their rewards, and, they already got they already got their payments in terms of, or their compensation per se, of the job they've done for making the movie itself. But in terms of the rewards of how well K-Pop Demon Hunters have succeeded, I doubt if they would see anything from it, because it's certainly not going to be Sony who's going to give them the rewards. I mean, maybe they did get something, but I don't know. I haven't heard anything, and feel free to go and confirm if the creative team at Sony Animation did get something from the success of K-Pop Demon Hunters, but honestly, I highly doubt it. But it's honestly very interesting to see how Sony received very little from K-Pop Demon Hunters because of their own hubris, because of the fact that they doubted K-Pop Demon Hunters and how far it would go, to the point that they decided to just freely give it away to Netflix and only get a little bit of compensation in return. And it's funny because now I know that this has become a very toxic discussion in which, like, so many people on the internet would keep on comparing K-Pop Demon Hunters to take down Elio, to slam and shame it, and pretty much weaponize K-pop in order to attack the Pixar film. But it's funny to see the perspective of that little made-up feud, per se. Because the thing is now, if we are looking at this quote-unquote battle of Disney versus Sony with Elio and K-Pop Demon Hunters, Disney right now has a massive advantage over Sony. Because there's one thing that Disney has with Elio that Sony does not with K-Pop Demon Hunters. And that is the fact that not only do they still have the rights to Elio, but they also have a second chance with Elio. And that is when Elio would be released, or when Elio is going to be released on Disney+. And from there, that can actually give the Pixar movie a second chance to see if it can find success and profitability. And if it does, then Disney is going to be reaping those rewards. And I'll even say right now, there is actually a good chance that it could do so, especially with the fact that despite all the backlash and the controversies related to using K-Pop Demon Hunters to go and attack Elio and stuff like that, Elio did receive a lot of positive reception and did receive some good word of mouth. And this is not even to mention that the post-credit scene featuring the lizard from Hoppers, that went on to become a massive viral sensation. So there actually is a strong possibility that maybe Elio could actually find success onto streaming. And again, if it does, then Disney will be rewarded for that. Disney will actually see some long-term success and long-term profitability if Elio manages to do extremely well on Disney+. And oh my God, I only just mentioned about the lizard from Hoppers, and already I'm starting to see the chat wall is starting to spam the lizard emoji. Oh my God, I'm not against it, but I just find it to be so funny. It was like, did someone say lizard? Lizard, 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 lizard. Oh man, as you can see, folks, I am actually a fan of that meme, and I'm honestly glad that it is a meme. So you know what, great on the Pixar team for actually creating this viral sensation that came out of nowhere. But anyways, to go back to what I am talking about, yes, right now, with the fact that Disney still owns the rights to Elio, they do have another chance to see some long-term profitability. Sony, on the other hand, they will never see any long-term profitability with K-Pop Demon Hunters because it's no longer their movie. It all belongs to Netflix now. And you got to keep in mind that with Netflix, they, like as I recently talked about, they're not going to stop at this movie alone. They are planning to go and make a big name franchise out of it. They're already talking about more shorts. They're talking about a series. They're talking about turning it into a trilogy. And there are rumors that they might even go and turn it into a stage musical and a live action remake. Although a lot of people are saying that the live action remake might never happen. But still though, the point is that Netflix is considering a lot of ideas on how to turn K-Pop Demon Hunters into their next big name franchise and to really go and aggressively capitalize on the success that we are seeing right now. And when we go look into Sony's case right over here, honestly, this puts them in a very interesting spot. I want to know what Sony is going to do at this point, because there is a good chance that Netflix would want to go and collaborate with Sony in order to make more K-Pop Demon Hunters, since they are the ones who actually made the movie in the first place. And so far, we don't know what it is just yet. In fact, this article here would even go and highlight that issue, in which it would say right over here, as for Sony, its involvement in what happens from here is unclear. Netflix, of course, needs someone to make these future movies. And while Sony largely missed out on the success of the first film, I imagine that it will not slip away the second or third time around. Excuse me, folks. We have no announcement of what's coming next for K-Pop Demon Hunters, and that may be why. I've asked Sony for comment and will report if I heard back. So yeah, honestly, that's going to be the real interesting thing that's going to happen next. It's not necessarily what's going to be the next big project related to K-pop Demon Hunters. It's going to be what is it that Sony will want to go and do next, and how will they go and approach this new deal that they would probably go and do with Netflix? Because that's one thing that they have to acknowledge, is that they missed out on a massive opportunity here. And if they're going to continue and try to turn K-pop Demon Hunters into a franchise with Netflix, then they would have, I would even say they must make a negotiation. They must make a deal with Netflix where they also see some of that long-term success as well. Because ironically, now Netflix is pretty much in a similar position to where Disney is with the Spider-Man film rights, where at least with the MCU films, Disney is the one who is responsible with making the MCU Spider-Man films, while Sony is the one who is responsible for releasing it and to go and really profit the most out of it by getting the grand majority of its revenue. But now at this point, they need to go and talk to Netflix in order to go and actually make a similar deal to what Disney did with Sony on Spider-Man. Like, now Sony needs to go and actually discuss with Netflix, like, hey, K-pop Demon Hunters got really big. We want to see some of that money and some of that success as well. They have to do so, or else Sony probably got screwed. Like, Sony would end up being screwed over big time. Like, this would honestly be one of the biggest mistakes in Hollywood history, and it's going to be something that Sony is seriously going to suffer from in the long run. Like, this will be noted as like one of the biggest mistakes that a Hollywood studio has ever done. So overall, when I say that Sony lost big on K-pop Demon Hunters, I do not mean on the movie itself, because even though I personally don't love the movie and I don't think it's like the best animated film of the year, I do acknowledge it definitely is a good movie. It definitely is solid as is. And I'm not saying that they lost because of how well the movie itself performed, because I mean, with all the records that it's been doing, I think that speaks for itself. But the reason why I say that Sony lost on K-pop Demon Hunters is by how much it missed out on in terms of the long-term revenue that they have not received, in which they have lost hundreds of millions of dollars. And even thinking ahead, they lost on a full-on possible billion-dollar franchise. Like, I can guarantee you how much that Sony Pictures has missed out on. They lost so much more than what Pixar lost on Elio in terms of its box office results. So yeah, I think it's honestly something that is worth mentioning. And again, Sony only has themselves to blame because they doubted the project when that film was released. And by the way, I just want to go and, I almost forgot about this, but I just want to go and also say this right now, that the more I think about it, the more, honestly, it is so stupid that Sony decided to just go and sell it, go and immediately sell all the rights to Netflix and just get that $20 million plus in return, and that's it. It's honestly so stupid, mainly because Sony had all the time and had all the opportunity to go and actually negotiate on a good deal with Netflix if they would go and distribute their movies exclusively on that platform, because they have seen legitimate success there before. They have done this and they have seen how well their movies can do, especially back in 2021 when there was The Mitchells versus the Machines and Vivo. And keep in mind, during that time, K-pop Demon Hunters was well early in development. So in that regards, they should have seen the success that those two movies have done, and they should have considered that for next time, if they would go and do that again, they would have to go and talk with Netflix in order to make a better deal where they could profit off of it. Even if they wouldn't believe that the movie would be that successful in the first place, it would still be worth a shot to make that kind of negotiation in case it would go well. So yeah, honestly, I just wanted to go and throw in my piece on this because, yeah, it's just absolutely ridiculous the way that Sony seriously missed out so badly on K-Pop Demon Hunters. And I'm sure that's going to be a decision that they will regret for years to come, as Huntrix is just going to be bigger from here. All right, so with that said, now I would like to go and pass this on to the chat wall. And I'd like to ask you all, what did you all think on Sony losing big on K-Pop Demon Hunters? And I would especially like to know, if you are a major K-Pop Demon Hunters fan, I would like to know what you think on this. All right, so let's see now. What do we have here? Sony made the biggest animated movie of the year, if not the decade, that they could have made into a franchise all to themselves, and they won't be able to make another dime on it. I know the animation community likes to say that this animation studio is destroying Disney, but in reality, no matter what weapon their combatants try to bring to the animation war, Disney already controls the terrain. Wish may have flopped, but Disney is still making bank on Asha dolls. Oh, trust me. And not to mention that there are some countries out there, like, just to go on a side note on Wish, like, there are some countries that they're already loving Wish. Again, like, I probably already mentioned this before, but in my recent trip to Japan, like, honestly, the latest animated feature that they were promoting from Disney, it's not Inside Out 2, it's not Moana 2, even if that film was still in theaters in Japan, it's Wish. Like, they were still selling some legit Wish merch, and not to mention that Disney is seeing a lot of massive profitability off of Disney Plus. So in that regard, it doesn't really matter if things don't go well at the box office with their new major movies, because again, they could find a second chance of profitability and success when it lands on streaming. So yeah, you do make a pretty good point. So like, yeah, like even though like maybe in terms of the battle of like Elio versus K-Pop Demon Hunters or like Disney versus Sony, like, yeah, K-pop won in the short term, but in terms of the long run, Sony lost big time on that. Let's see now. Honestly, to Sony Pictures, womp womp to them. I'm honestly more happy with the cast and crew that made the movie. They made something special by a bunch of amazing people that deserve so much more credit. I remember when I first heard about K-Pop Demon Hunters at DesignCon 2022, when Sony Pictures Animation were in the event, and I got to talk to Christine Belson at the event and rooted for them. Also, she's a big fan of Turning Red. Oh, that's nice. Oh, wow. You get to talk to freaking Christine Belson? Yo, that is major. You're talking to the head of Sony Animation right there. Holy crap, John, what the fridge is with your connections? Okay, anyways, let's see what else, what other comments we have here. Sony, what have you done? You gave the most popular movie that people have watched, including myself, to a streaming service because you don't have faith with it, don't have faith with it. And since Netflix now has the rights to it and how big it is, you can imagine the girl swimming in cash, Scrooge McDuck style, and the planned series from that one animated Oz movie that turned out to be a scam from an actor. Shame, Sony, for shame. All right, let's see what other comments we have here. That's a lesson from Sony that they have to give some of their movies a chance. Congratulations to Netflix for making a big-ass success of K-Pop Demon Hunters. The song Soda Pop exploded on TikTok. Man, people also, if they make a K-Pop Demon Hunters series, let's hope that the animators are now going to be The animators are now going to be damn crap like these other Netflix movies based on movies like the Megamind series from the crap sequel. Did you see the K-Pop Demon Hunter trend on TikTok? Honestly, I'm not on TikTok as much, or at least I'm not casually on TikTok as much. So honestly, I wouldn't really say. I don't think I've seen that trend going on. Anyways, let's see what other comments are there. I am happy that K-Pop Demon Hunters is successful on Netflix. I am happy with the artists and animators who worked on the film. I am happy with the cast who got extra rewards. The mistake has nothing to do with Sony Pictures Animation because the Sony Pictures executives are dumb these days, greenlit unnecessary films that later failed in the end, like Morbius and Morbius 2: Kraven the Hunter. Yeah, exactly. When I do say Sony, by the way, I do mean Sony Pictures specifically, not necessarily Sony Pictures Animation, especially nowadays when it really does feel like Sony Animation is like a completely separated entity that's slowly but surely distancing itself away from Sony Pictures. I mean, they're slowly coming back, especially when they do have movies like Beyond the Spider-Verse and GOAT that they are going to be released in theaters. But still, though, it's stuff like this that makes me question the relationship between Sony Pictures and its primary animation studio. All right, and I'm going to go and read one more comment before we move on to our grand finale here. Let's see if there's one I haven't read. So, did I? Oh, okay. All right, I didn't read this one. So, I find it so funny that people use K-Pop Demon Hunters to attack Elio, only then later learned that Sony only made some chump change from the film. Disney definitely got the last laugh when it comes to money. I do hope Elio does well on Disney Plus because I do hope the strong positive word of mouth would help the film become a sleeper hit. But yeah, so sorry, Sony, you missed out on the Huntrix money, big time. Exactly. So if there is a lesson to be had here, go watch Elio when it comes out on Disney Plus. Nah, but for real though, yeah, I think it's safe to say that Sony took quite an L for missing out on one of the biggest animated films of the year.